Well, hello there, girlfriend. Ingafay here. Super excited to be with you all once again. I wanted to share another coaching girlfriend with you, Dr. Hayley Nelson. She is a neuroscience, y'all. And we are going to talk about how to decode your brain secrets, taking an approachable view on neuroscience. So I know you're probably like, what? Just come on over. We'll see you on the other side. Hey, Haley girl.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great, girl. Super excited to have you here so we can talk about how to decode the brain secrets. But before we get into that, we want to know a little bit more about you. We want to get in your business.
All
Tell us
right.
about you, who you are, who you serve, and how you serve them.
Awesome. So I'm Dr. Hayley Nelson. I am a neuroscientist, as you said. I'm also a full-time psychology professor just outside of the Philadelphia area.
Awesome.
I'm a mom of two very active boys, a wife, homeowner, I wear all the hats. And then I recently founded the Academy of Cognitive and Behavioral Neuroscience, where my mission is making neuroscience approachable and accessible, right? So I know, Inga, you and I were talking about earlier how just Googling the term neuroscience and it can be really intimidating. So
Yes.
I want to pull that bandage off and say it doesn't have to be intimidating. It can actually not only be understandable, but then how can you use that to grow your business, to grow your own wellness, health and wellness, and
Yes.
your clients?
Awesome. So tell us this, what is neuroscience?
So neuroscience is the study of the nervous system, really. I mean, there's many different fields within neuroscience itself. It's a very integrative field of study. So it incorporates biology and chemistry and physics and psychology, all incorporated into one to really understand how the nervous system works. And I am a cognitive and behavioral neuroscientist. My PhD work is actually more in the behavioral neuroscience aspect. So how organisms, including humans, and why we do what we do. So really getting an understanding of that. And with my knowledge in neuroscience in general, I also think it's so important to understand how and why we think the way that we think. So that's why I created the Academy, to combine both the cognitive as well as the behavioral aspects of neuroscience to really understand it from a cellular level, right? We're even going to go into the molecular basis of it, but really set the foundation of what is the brain, how does it work? So that when you hear these news reports about this drug or that drug, or people are sad and they're feeling depressed, what does it actually mean in the brain? And then we break it down into neurodevelopment, how the brain grows, how we learn, habits. We talk about trauma and the effects of stress on the brain and brain health, addiction. And then we go into psychological disorders, sexuality as well. And we'll also talk about various treatment options for those psychological disorders. And it's really, I created this academy to allow people to understand those fundamentals, to answer that question that you just asked, what is neuroscience? And then take it that step further of knowing what neuroscience is, how can I then apply it to my life and my business to help me grow and thrive?
Right, exactly. So, Hayley, I'm just curious, how can we use neuroscience to really build our business and even our brand?
So let me ask you a question then, right? Have you ever worked with someone, one of your clients, and they don't seem to be able to move forward and progress? They stand in their own way. Right? How frustrating can that be as a coach when you have all of these tools and all of this support ready to give them, but for whatever reason, whether it's they're dealing with a history of abuse or substance abuse or trauma or just life stresses in general, that they just can't get out of their own way, right? And so understanding how the brain works, and then especially neuroplasticity, which is another one of those fun words that people like to look up, but how we can change our brain, how can we rewire it so that we can thrive instead of just survive, instead of just getting through day to day. How can we actually make our lives easier and better so that our business can be better, right? How can we, by understanding how dopamine works, for example, how can I create new habits to improve my motivation, to improve my productivity, even different sales tactics, understanding that when the nervous system is heightened and perceives a stressor or a threat in their environment, they're not going to be receptive to anything that you have to say. Right. So really understanding the biological basis of how people do what they do and then why they do what they do can have profound impacts, not only for your own personal business, but then you're going to help your clients succeed and grow. And then they're going to be, giving you raving testimonials. And this is the first coach that actually helped me. This is the first leader that I've worked with, or the first team that I've been on where I've actually seen success. And it's because that coach, that leader is actually using the power of the brain and understanding how we can change and shape the brain to help our clients better.
Right. So when it comes to that, what would be some brain tips, I guess you would call it, that you would recommend that we do to help us elevate our game?
Yeah. So there's so many tips out there. And it's funny that you asked for brain tips, because a lot of times people will talk about brain and mind and use the terms synonymously, right? And then they're basically in their heads, they're thinking that they mean the same thing. But the brain is the actual organ, right? So a lot of times people think, oh, well, if I'm trying to improve my gut health, I need to take these supplements or eat this diet, right? And while there is an element of that, because the brain is an organ and there's absolutely some nutrients that it needs, and you want to have all of those chemicals balanced, you also have to figure out how you're nurturing it and nourishing it through the thoughts that you're having. So taking care of your mind also takes care of your brain, and vice versa. Taking care of your brain health, the actual cells, can in turn help facilitate and take care of your mind. So a lot of things that we can think about. I mean, let's just take stress, for example. We can't avoid stressors in our life. But one thing that we can have control over, and if we don't yet, it's something that we can learn to have, is the fact that everything that happens to us flows through this psychological filter, that it's up to us to choose how we are going to evaluate and perceive those stressors in our environment, in our life. Are we going to look at them as a threat, or are we going to look at them as a challenge? And if you look at things like a threat, you're going to activate a certain aspect of our nervous system known as the sympathetic nervous system. You might have heard of it as their fight or flight response.
That's right.
To protect us, to keep us safe, right? We need to increase all this oxygen so that we're going to have our heart pump faster and our breathing's going to increase. We've all experienced those times. I mean, drop your cell phone in a toilet, you'll know that feeling. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
But then as soon as you pull that phone out and you realize, I didn't lose anything, my life is still intact, right? You have that calming breath. And that's because you've activated the parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest, where now you can have better immune system and better cognition and able to really thrive in that stress-filled life that we all have, right? And so understanding the mechanisms behind that and how can I stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system in those times of a heightened stressful situation so that I can be even keeled and I can use the parts of my brain like my prefrontal cortex to make these decisions that are better for my future, that are better for my business, better for my friends and family, instead of just going with my gut reaction. Right. So how we can do this, that's the mindset part, right? To be able to train our mind so that we can in turn control our brain and the pathways that we're doing that way. But we can also go through and actually take care of our brain, which in turn will help our mindset. So some tricks and tips to help facilitate neuroplasticity, which is how we can actually change and rewire the brain. Plasticity meaning plastic. Our brains are actually quite moldable. So if you're feeling like you're stuck in a rut somewhere, just know that there is hope. You can change the actual structure of your brain and how it's connected and wired to be able to allow you to live an optimal life. So some tips for that. I mean, of course, there's supplements that we can take, and obviously eating healthy and a well-balanced diet is essential so that you can get all of those nutrients and essential amino acids and all of that fun stuff. But other things that you can do, and, do as I say, not as I do. Aerobic exercise is fantastic for brain health. Everybody always thinks about aerobic exercise as being good for your cardiovascular health and your lung health. And, it helps your midline and your midsection, all of that. But it actually, when you work out, you're releasing this chemical known as BDNF. And I know it's an acronym. It stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Yes, I'm a geek. But when that chemical gets released, this chemical actually has a really high affinity for neurons, and it serves as a protection. It prevents these neurons from dying, right? We used to historically think that we're born with a set number of neurons, and then throughout our life, they all just start dying with all the toxins we're exposed to. And then that's it. We can't have any more brain cells and then we die, right? Well, we now know that we can actually create new neurons. It's called neurogenesis. And
Okay.
we can protect these neurons from dying. And so BDNF is a protective factor that will protect our neurons from dying, but then it also can facilitate neuroplasticity. So that even if the habit that you're trying to do, let's say you just want to start waking up earlier in the morning and have a morning routine, or
Right.
you want to, I don't know, do something that has nothing to do with your physical health. Right. But by adding that aerobic exercise, now you're actually helping those new neural connections take place. Because the more you repeat a behavior or a thought, the stronger that automation becomes. Our nervous system is set up to automate things, right? We don't have to think every single time we see a red circle. Do I want to eat this? Do I need to use it? Is it something I put on my lips for a lipstick? You want it, you see it, you know what it is, it's automatic, right? And so throughout our life, we have created these pathways that flow along the path of least resistance from early on in childhood, even prenatally. We've created these pathways to optimize our output, our performance. But now all of a sudden you want to start changing them, right? You want to change your habits, change your motivation, and you're going to start trying. It's like trying to get a stream to flow uphill. You're going to hit resistance. It's not going to work that way automatically. And so by adding that aerobic exercise, you're increasing BDNF, which is going to actually help facilitate that neuroplasticity to allow it to actually work quicker and in your favor. But of course, that has to be medically appropriate. Not everybody is a candidate for aerobic exercise. I'd like to say that I'm not a candidate, but I know that I am. But that's, I think, that is, it's such a free, easy way to be able to help your brain health. And then when you improve your mindset, then that also facilitates brain health as well. So I know you were asking for a couple quick tips, but I could write an entire book on this. So those are
it sounds like it. So I got a question for you, because I know that there are oftentimes it's at the end of the day when it's like this. And I've been working all day, and I say probably about maybe 4 or 5 o'clock, and I start getting what I call a brain fog. And I notice that if I go and walk, I notice if I just go walk and I come back, it's just like, I don't know, it's just like a weight has been lifted off of me. Is that what you're talking about?
What you're experiencing is you're getting a flood of chemicals, which also is protective for the brain, and helpful to reinforce that behavior. So you feel good. You probably got a flood of endorphins, flood of dopamine. It feels good. You're getting the fresh air. You're getting some sunlight on your skin. You're moving your body. You're breathing better. Your heart rate's pumping. You feel great. So that also happens. So that feeling of relief and release that you experience when you do that is because of the cocktail that you just created and released for yourself. That feels good. It's reinforcing. So hopefully next time somebody says, hey, let's go for a walk, you're going to say, absolutely, let's go do it. And you're going to feel better afterwards. Now, neuroplasticity is a much longer process. So neuroplasticity, how neurons work, how they communicate with each other is they create these connections. There's a small gap in between the two neurons, let's say, that are connecting and trying to communicate with each other. It's known as a synapse. So it's that space between the two neurons. And the more you do a behavior or a thought pattern, the stronger that connection becomes. And the connection is actually different chemicals that are being released, right? So neurotransmitters. And the more and more you do it, the stronger that connection becomes. You've probably heard of the saying, use it or lose it, right? And it's the same mentality here. If you don't do certain things, you're not going to have those connections. But if you continue to do those things, then it just becomes automated and it's a stronger and stronger connection. So neuroplasticity is retraining and rewiring the brain. So you have that strong connection, that bad habit that you've had for a really long time, but now you're trying to create a new pathway. It's almost like, a fork in the road. You're creating a new fork, a new pathway. And then you're trying to strengthen that. So you have to have repetition.
Right.
And then using that BDNF to help facilitate that growth and those connections. The more and more you do it, the stronger that pathway becomes. And then you no longer have that bad habit. You've replaced it with a different behavior or thought.
Interesting.
So it doesn't happen overnight. It's not an immediate release of, oh, that feels good. That's probably the opiates talking.
No, I get it. Yeah. Overload. Yeah, for sure. Okay.
That's a very strong chemical.
Yeah, very strong. So is that why it's so important to have affirmations and declarations that you say to yourself as a way to change the pathway in your brain to think a certain way? Is that
absolutely? Yeah.
Okay.
And so gratitude journaling.
Right.
Is so
Gratitude.
great.
Yes.
You're literally creating these new pathways of
Awesome.
gratitude, right? After positive affirmations. I have this cute story. I always tell people it's never too early to start some of these patterns. And it's also never too late to start some of these. And I have two boys. My oldest is 10 now. And 2 years ago, I remember this because it was the very first day of second grade for him. He's in fourth grade now.
Wow.
But up until then, that whole summer, we were practicing positive affirmations. So every night before bed, we were up there brushing our teeth, looking at ourselves in the mirror. And I just want them to have that healthy mindset, right? And so from an early age, I would just say, okay, Charlie, let's talk nice to ourselves. What are we going to say? And he wouldn't do it. He was so resistant. He thought I was being silly. He thought it was just the stupidest thing in the world. So I made it a game. I said, well, I'll be Captain Marvel. You can be Captain America, right? So I'm going to stand, and here I am pretending to be Captain Marvel and all her go female power, right? And I'm just like, I'm Captain Marvel. I'm strong and people love me and I'm happy and I'm kind. And I don't even know all the words that I said, but I gave this positive affirmation for myself. And then I said, okay, Charlie, now you're Captain America. You do it. So then he had no problem doing it as Captain America. So then over and over, we kept doing this until eventually I stopped saying be Captain America. And I say, okay, let's do our positive affirmations. What's our self-talk tonight? And then he started, I'm Charlie, I'm kind, I'm smart, I'm loved, I have friends, all of these things that he just started saying about himself. And then that very first day of second grade, we get out there and here I am, like every other mother in America, right? Taking pictures to post on social media that nobody really cares about, right? Of their kids on their first day of school.
Right.
In their cute outfits, right? And then he goes, wait, mommy, I want to do one more. And he did his power pose. And he goes, I'm Charlie and I am loved.
Oh, that is so cool.
Oh, it was just so hard. I just got another chill up my back. That's two years ago. And I'm still getting a chill. And I'm like, if every second grader in the country or in the world could start off their very first day of school knowing that they're loved, can you imagine how different this world would be?
That would be so
right.
Awesome.
And so that was a beautiful case of that was neuroplasticity. We repeated it. He was resistant. He was hesitant. He didn't want to do it. But then it became automatic. He didn't even want to go to school until he said, I am loved. And awesome. So he started his day feeling loved. And when he came home from school, big smile on his face. And I knew that I sent him off into this world with that positive self-talk. Exactly. And so all that was repetition, right? I didn't do any of the extra tricks and tips and things like that. It was just do it. Right. And the more you do it, the stronger those connections become. They become reality in your nervous system. Because your brain can't tell the difference between a perceived, I don't want to call it a hallucination, but a visualization, right? So if you have a vision board and you pretend and you imagine yourself living this beautiful life on an island that you own. And the more realistic you make those visualizations, and the more you repeat those visualizations, your brain is going to start wiring itself to have already experienced that. So now over time, you're going to actually start making decisions in your life. Next time you're in the grocery store picking out what kind of peanut butter to buy or something, you're going to be processing and making that decision as if you've already achieved that outcome because your nervous system is already wired to have achieved that.
Right. That's
so
awesome.
Positive affirmations, gratitude journaling, vision boards, all of those things are so important to strengthen that mind health, because then it's going to in turn strengthen the physical connections of that organ of the brain. Then you're going to change the way you think, change the way you act on a day-to-day basis.
Wow. Well, thanks for putting that little science into all of the things that we've been told to do, especially in direct sales, you're told to make that vision board board. You're told
Right.
to think about what you're working towards, what you're actually do as a result of your business, how that's going to gain you whatever your big goal is. And
Yeah.
then as coaches, you're talking to your clients, doing that same thing with them. And you just broke it down to us so we could really understand there's a whole reason for it. It's not just hogwash that people are
Well,
telling
it's
us.
funny. 5 years ago, I would have, if somebody told me to do a vision board or gratitude journaling, I would have rolled my, oh, I don't do that woo-woo stuff. I'm a doctor. I have my PhD from Johns Hopkins. Don't you tell me what
Right.
some guru came up with sitting on a rock one day, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
that's not how I was trained until I had my own personal health journey. And I was actually in direct sales for a while. And I started doing those vision boards and doing the gratitude journaling
Right.
and working with coaches and saying, oh my gosh, as a scientist, I get the science behind it.
Right.
And then so I'm teaching these coaches and these leaders about, okay, wait, if you're having people like me, who you're trying to get me to do these vision boards and I'm rolling my eyes at you, if you actually explain the science behind how it works, they're going to have more buy-in and they're going to actually start doing it instead of just doing it because you told them to. They're going to want to start doing it because they're going to actually start seeing the change and they know that it's backed by science. It's not just some woo-woo thing somebody told them. And so that's why I created the Academy, to work with leaders, thought leaders and coaches and business execs and really anybody who works with other people. And when they have that little hesitation, it's like, okay, look, this is actually backed by science. Let me show you how this works in the brain.
Right.
Or if you have somebody coming to you and they have a history of trauma or abuse or whatever in their life, or they're dealing with ADHD, well, now you can have a better understanding of how their brains might be working differently than somebody else. And so how you can adjust and adapt your coaching and leadership style with them because you're talking to somebody whose brain processes things slightly differently.
Wow. I mean, you really broke it down today, and specifically with your son's story about him wanting to say that to you with the hesitation, because
I wish I had a video camera of all the things I videotape, right? I was just taking pictures. I had it on picture instead of video. How amazing would that have been if I had had that forever?
Yeah, for sure. Because as adults, I mean, we're just grown up kids at the end of the day. So
we really are. I mean, and our brains that we're working with were formed when we were children, right? And the decisions that we make and the actions that we do were really formed from early childhood experiences and adolescence, right? As we have these rapid changes in growth. So then when we're trying to change our brain again, there's going to be hesitation, there's going to be resistance. And so how can you get back to that childlike attitude that you can do these things and there is hope and there is a possibility for change? And that's really the message that I try to put out there for people, that it doesn't have to be, you don't have to work with the cards that you're dealt. You can change, you can improve. And as I said before, we can learn how to thrive instead of just survive.
Exactly. It's all about having that growth mindset, that it's not that we're just given this knowledge that we have in our head when we're born and we'll never be able to expand or add to that. So thank you for that. Thank you. Well, tell us a little bit about your freebie. I know you were talking to me a little bit about this before when we started. So tell me about that so folks will know how to get in contact with you.
Yeah, so I love meeting new people and figuring out how I can best serve them. So I do have a free discovery call on my website. So if you go to academyofneuro.com, and I'm sure Ingafay is going to be putting up a link for that you can, get from the show notes, to be able to click there, grab it, get on there. You'll see all the offerings that I have. I have individual consultations and the courses that I talked about, that certification program. But for those of you who just want to sit down and chat with me and see how the knowledge that I have can help you better, sign up for that free discovery call. And I'd love to meet you and we can chat and see how I can best serve you. And whether it's something I can do or if it's a referral somewhere else, I'm happy to do that for you. So definitely go over to the website, academyofneuro.com. Check it all out and sign up for that discovery call, or just to get more information. You can do all that right there.
Awesome. Well, girl, it has been a pleasure connecting with you and getting to know you. I feel like we girlfriends,
I know, we are. We are. We're sisters from another mother.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for being on. And those that are watching, thank you for your time and attention. And if you know of anyone that you would like me to interview in the future, by all means, let me know. And I guess all that's said and done, bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.